from the J.C. Newman Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts, and the Gurkha Cigar Studio in beautiful British Columbia. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tabacco and Mitchell Santaga.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tabacco from SmokinTabacco.com. I am once again in the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios. I am not joined by my co-host, Mr. Mitchell Santaga, tonight, as he is once again feeling a little bit under the weather. So he won't be here with us tonight, unfortunately, but that's okay. I do have a guest with us here tonight. Very excited to welcome this person onto the show. You may or may not know him from his hit brand Aladino, which, if you haven't, you should check out today. You're doing yourself a disservice by not smoking those cigars. It's Justo Eiroa of JRE Tobacco. Justo, welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a true honor and pleasure to be with you. I just saw you recently over in the New England Cigar Festival, and it's a privilege to be on your show tonight. And I do excuse myself for today, not be able to catch up with you and smoke with you and Aladino with you. But I just like I mentioned before, just had a little bit of eye surgery. I'm just gonna stay away, and that was yesterday. So I'm feeling okay, but and I hope you enjoy the cigars as much as I'm going to be craving for one.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, glad you're okay. Got to do what you got to do to take care of yourself. I totally get that. But yeah, I'll enjoy this for you. And it won't be too hard to enjoy. It's very easy to enjoy. So, in fact, I'm going to talk about that now. Once again, as always, if you head over to the number2guyscigars.com, you can find all of the Aladino cigars, as well as a plethora of cigar brands and cigar accessories from the cigar industry, only at the number2guyscigars.com. And tonight, with Justo, I pulled out the Aladino Classic, which is a great cigar. I would have smoked, not that this isn't good enough, I would have smoked my number one favorite, although I didn't have any, and I was actually surprised by that fact, because I always usually have some on hand. But the Corojo Reserva, my absolute favorite from the Aladino brand. You can also find those at the number2guyscigars.com. And cutting and lighting tonight, with us, we have ST Dupont. That's right, ST Dupont Be Exceptional, featuring the Defi Extreme Twin Jet lighter in the new matte finish Petrol Blue, which is exclusive to the U.S., only from ST Dupont. Fantastic stuff. It's what we rely on here at Smokin Tabacco every day. They never let us down. So, Justo, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here tonight. This is your first time on the show. As I was mentioning before, I know your brother Christian was on the show a couple weeks ago, actually. So now we've done both of the Eiroas almost kind of right near each other, which is awesome. A lot of Honduran tobacco talk we can be having on this show this month. So a lot of fun. But let's talk about you first. Just to kind of get some people who might not know the brand very well just up to speed really quickly. How long has JRE been around? And, kind of what got that started for you? I know that your family obviously has, been in the business a long time, but kind of, starting your own thing with JRE, just kind of walk us through that a little bit, how that got started.
Well, I basically came on board in 2016. I was working in different areas, and my father's non-compete with Davidoff ended, and at the same time also, he wanted to reactivate the farm and start growing tobacco in a more mass scale that we were doing before. And the opportunity showed up, and him and I teamed up to develop a new brand based on our old blends that we had in our tobacco. And we decided to come up with Aladino. So basically, I came on board on 2016, but Aladino really didn't hit the shelves in 2017. And so basically, technically, we've been 7 years in the business, but with Aladino 6 years. So it's fairly a brand new brand. And I think we have come out with a pretty wide range in our portfolio, and Aladino has performed really. I think has done the brand by itself has done a pretty remarkable job in satisfying almost everyone that has a need to smoke a different type of cigar, depending the mood and stuff like that. So we have a kind of wide portfolio, but we're fairly brand new. but at the same time, it's been a lot of work traveling, visiting, meeting and greeting, and and having people try our cigars.
So currently in the Aladino portfolio that you have the original Aladinos, you have the Corojo Reserva, you have the Connecticut, you have the classic, and then do you still? I can't remember.
We have the Cameroon. We also have the vintage,
The
and we
vintage is
also
what I was
have,
thinking of. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and we also have the box press Maduro San Andres.
right. Um, you have quite the lineup, like you said, and I know that one of the other things that we'll talk about this maybe in depth a little bit more in a little bit, but you're also adding the Sumatra um,
Yes.
to the portfolio now, which is something new that you guys have been working on.
Well, that was a limited release cigar that we came out during PCA, and everything was pre-ordered, and we shipped in October, and it was a very, very, very successful uh, lineup. We did a 52 by 6. And the great thing about the Sumatra wrapper, we actually started growing the Sumatra the same year that we started growing the Cameroon, which was like 6, 7 years ago.
Hmm.
So we first launched the Cameroon. It became very successful. And then, we slowly bring stuff to the market. And, the Sumatra was his turn to do a limited release, and it worked out pretty successful.
Yeah, the you mentioned the Cameroon. I remember when the Cameroon came out. Um, I remember smoking it at Two Guys Smoke Shop back in the day. I think they were one of the first stores that had it. I remember I came in and they were like, "Oh, we got new Aladino," because at the time, when I was hanging out in that shop all the time, that's a big Aladino shop. So all the guys that work there, they all smoke Aladino. They buy them in multiple boxes. I mean, as I'm sure you know. But I just remember every time I came in, and anytime there was something new that you put out, that they were always like right on it, and it was exciting. And I remember when the Cameroon came out, and I was like, "Oh, this is different." And it's a Cameroon seed grown in Honduras, um, not a African grown Cameroon, which I know a lot of people have talked about, on shows and whatnot, where you get the people who are like, well, you have African Cameroon, and then you have the Cameroon that's grown elsewhere, but is it really Cameroon? And I always found it interesting on that debate, and I remember when that cigar came out, that debate like kind of kicked up again, and I remember saying to myself, yeah, but there's so many other wrappers that are of a different seed that are grown elsewhere. So why would it matter with Cameroon? I know that Cameroon is a special tobacco, whatever, but the Cameroon seed being grown elsewhere.
I always say the example, people start laughing and says, hey, it's like you basically hit it, the nail on the head when you said, hey, there's a Habano seed grown in Cuba, there's Habano seed grown in Ecuador, there's
Yeah,
Habano seed grown in Nicaragua, there's Habano seed grown in Honduras, and the Habano seed you can't tell where it comes from. And a lot of things has to do with genetics. If you have a Chihuahua that is born in Mexico, it's a Chihuahua. If you have a Chihuahua that is born in Russia, it's still a Chihuahua.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there is going to be different characteristics that you're going to be able to taste when it has to do with the soil, the fertilization. It might be richer. It's going to be, it might be the wrapper might be prettier depending on the microclimate that you have. So, there are some characteristics that you'll have, but basically, I would say 80, 90% of the flavor characteristics will be there in the same plant. But it's a hard crop to grow, just like the Corojo. Everybody says they got Corojo, but they don't grow the Corojo that we have.
now on the in regards to the Cameroon, the other thing about Cameroon that I know in a post roll is difficult, but in the manufacturing and the growing process, that's a more fragile leaf, which I know a lot of people have talked about how there can be damages to it before it's even been used, or sometimes it affects the yields that they get after it's been fermented and whatnot. Do you find this still to be true, grown elsewhere, or do you think that is kind of more of a African Cameroon grown characteristic?
Well, I'm not going to go too much into details when it comes to that because everybody's got their own trade secrets and how to make it better or worse.
Sure.
But it does have to do with the thickness, the way you grow the tobacco. It also has to do the way you dry the tobacco, the way you process the tobacco. So there is it is definitely a more fragile leaf because it's a thinner leaf. So definitely it has to do with the characteristics of the leaf by its own characteristics. It's a thinner and more fragile leaf. Yes.
Now, in regards to the Corojo is a tobacco that I think, as of late, seems to be getting more popular, and at least in terms of discussions that I have with other people, and stuff that comes out on the market from you guys obviously, and other manufacturers. Corojo seems to be one of those tobaccos right now that's just getting more popular and a little bit more mainstream than I feel like it was a couple years ago. And it's a great tobacco, and I feel like for you guys, the Eiroas, you have created this reputation as being, the Corojo family. You guys have really done it the best way. You've kind of mastered it in the cigars that you've used it in. Um, you know, from what my understanding is, Corojo was also a tobacco that the Cubans used to grow a few decades ago, and I believe the Cubans also changed their tobacco in the 90s, and I want to say they got away from Corojo. Is that true?
Well, what happened was during the when we had the blue mold back in the late '80s, early '90s, when blue mold came in and basically wiped out all the crops. They had to find an alternative option to Corojo, and then what they started doing they was crossbreeding it, and by making hybrids, they still call it Corojo, and Corojo became extremely popular because it's a very intense flavored cigar, but at the same time it's very aromatic, so it gives you strength, aroma, and also can give you power. So people got used to all those three things, and it could be a very smooth cigar and very, very, very rich to your palate. And they tried to, since it became such a novelty back in the 90s, people needed to get those characteristics inbred with another variety. And then that's how they started creating the different varieties of Corojo. But, you'll still get a lot of hump or power with those, but you're not going to get that sweetness and that aroma that the regular authentic Corojo does. So you have a lot of varieties that are called Corojo, but they're not, the authentic Corojo.
Yeah, I mean, Corojo to me, I mean, I know even Drew Estate, they have their H99 that they use, the Connecticut hybrid Corojo that they grow up here in the Northeast. There's been some other, instances, people doing different stuff with Corojo. I feel like I see a lot of other brands now starting to come out with that Corojo iteration of a line or a blend or whatever it is. And I feel like I see that more and more now. And I feel like a lot of the conversations I have when those products come out is people smoke them and try them, and more often than not, I hear people going like, "Well, how does it compare to, like an Aladino or one of your brother's cigars, where the tobacco that you guys grow down in Honduras?" I feel like that's kind of become, in conversations I have, like the benchmark of like, yeah, that was good, but how does it stand up to the Eiroa's Corojo? Which I think says a lot.
In a way, it is something that is for us is it gives us that incentive to keep on growing, because like you said, if we become the benchmark, that is something to be proud of, because people want to replicate something that you do, and because it is very successful and it's very appealing to the cigar smoker. That intensity of flavor that you get, without overkilling or overpowering your palate. You're able to enjoy a cigar with so much flavor that, at the end of the day, it does not overwhelm your palate, and you're still good to smoke another cigar. And that's kind of the way that, we try to blend with Aladino. We blend for flavors. We don't blend to shoot your palate.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true. I mean, I've smoked pretty much, I think, at least a couple of every cigar line that you make in under Aladino, and I'd say that's true. I mean, they've always been, flavor first, very well balanced. You can kind of, without even smoking the whole cigar, like I'll start one and I'll remember like, oh, this is how this whole cigar goes and transitions, and I know that flavor too. And I feel like that's, like you said, like you don't really blend for the power. It's for the palate, and I think that's true, and I think that's really the best way. In my opinion, you could pack a cigar with a lot of power, a lot of punch, but if there's no flavor to go along with it, you're just smoking all that strength. And the flavor, and especially with the tobaccos you guys use, I mean, they're meant to be enjoyed, to really taste that and to pick up those notes on them. And, it's really what sets them apart and makes them so unique. That, yeah, of course, I mean, that has to be the biggest thing. And I think you guys do a great job with it, as you said. One of the things I wanted to ask you, I know we talk a lot about Corojo, but I wanted to ask you about something else that I actually talked about with your brother when he was on the show. And I know that he's been working with the Pinareno. I already forget how you say it. Tobacco.
He's talking about Pinareño, which is basically the seed that we brought back in the 60s. We actually didn't bring it. That seed was brought by Tino Argudin, which was the head of the Cuban Tobacco Institute. And, there is some tobacco that we have grown for many, many years. It's just been sitting there. And he's doing probably some testing and some blends with that tobacco. And I'm pretty sure it's going to bring a different characteristic to the cigars that are coming. I'm not going to say nothing yet, but, we're in a timeline on stuff that we're going to be coming out. And hopefully, we'll be coming out with something special with that in the near future too. But,
Okay.
I guess so. I think he's onto something, and he's very unique in the way he blends. He's a great blender, and he's got a special quality about his perception about blending, which is different than ours, and we that really differentiates our lines from his lines.
Yeah, that's. I was just curious if one would assume if he's working with a certain kind of tobacco. I'd be curious if that's something that you would be working with. And it sounds like maybe you have been playing around with that, which is exciting to hear. I always like to to see what you come up with as well. So that's really cool. Now I know one of the things we have the PCA trade show coming up earlier this year. We've shifted to March from July. Has that affected any of your timelines with how you had things, in the queue for product releases around the trade show? Or did you kind of have enough heads up about that to kind of plan your
it actually, it definitely changes the timeline and everything. Everything is rushed. We're already working on a couple of things that because we also have the TPE show that we will be attending in the TPE show. So we have a couple of things for there. We also have a couple of things that are coming out for the trade show. And that has basically accelerated everything. Not only that, because we have to work on boxes, we have to work on designs, we have to order bands, we have to work on blends. So everything in a way is put on a kind of like a speed dial or a much accelerated timeline. And hopefully we'll see how this is going to work. I understand that there seems to be a lot of interest in going in March, even though I think it's going to be a little bit early. But at the same time, it allows the retailers that are not in full season, like June or July, to come to the trade show while they're not in high season of sales. So I don't know. I don't have the experience to have done an early trade show. Some of the feedback that I heard from other manufacturers and other sales personnel that have been in early trade shows, they seems to be that their expectation is to be a more fluid and more attendees going to the trade show. So we'll see how it goes. I think we'll adjust to the needs of the trade show, and we're already preparing and building up our inventory to get that done. So that's what we're definitely working on that.
So my next question was going to be, and I'm sorry, I forgot all about the TPE show, and thank you for reminding me. So in regards to TPE and PCA, is there anything new that we can expect to be launched at those trade shows, or maybe one of those trade shows?
I think one of the things that we had a very, very successful launch last year when we did it for the farm stores was we came out with a Candela. And this year we'll be coming out of the TPE with a Candela Toro. And I think that's going to be something going to be really, really good. It's not going to be a regular line completely, but I'm going to come out with a much larger quantity. Hopefully, because the amount we only did like 600 boxes or 700 boxes for 30 stores that had been to the farm, and they sold out within 4 to 5 weeks after we shipped it, and they wanted more. But the good thing about it, it created kind of like a buzz that our Candela was a little bit different than what the Candelas are out there. I mean, we were the largest Candela growers in the world back in the late 80s and early 90s. And, we have that expertise to do Candela really well. And we blended that cigar with a lot of Corojo binders and fillers. And the dynamic of that cigar became very, very, very not grassy at all, a very rich cigar, very smooth cigar, which actually create, and I think with the new Toro size that will be coming out, I think it's going to be something that most people need to try, because at one point in time, Candela used to be the best-selling wrapper in the country. And it was even more. It was sold more than Connecticut, which today is the best-selling wrapper in the industry.
Really, I didn't even know that. What time period kind of did it really peak in the
I would
market?
say late 80s, 90s. I mean, that's what we used to grow 1,200 acres of Candela wrapper, over 600,000 pounds of wrapper we used to sell.
It's funny. Like for me, it's funny to hear that, because I mean, I enjoy a Candela from time to time. It's a tobacco I don't shy away from. I know that there's a lot of people who do, but nowadays it's not very common. You don't see many people working with Candela, and I didn't even know that. And so it's interesting to think like, oh, like there used to be a lot more Candela on the shelves, and now we don't really see a lot of it at all, which is kind of a very unique concept.
Yeah. So, it's then you have St. Patrick's coming up in March and something. So I think it's a good thing. So I think that the amount of boxes that we'll come out with will be an easy mover. And I think people will enjoy that. And hopefully, if it catches on, it's something that we might turn into a regular line. And we'll probably do changing of the packaging and do some stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But we'll repeat that last year we did Robustos, and this year we're going to come out with the Candela Toro, and I think it's going to be a very unique addition to our portfolio, and people should get excited about that and try it, because it was very, very, very successful this year.
And I heard you mention St. Patrick's Day. So is this going to be like a St. Patrick's Day release, kind of, when it?
No. Well, remember, you'll order in TPE, and you'll start receiving that in February, and I think St. Patrick starts in March, so it's going to be pretty close to that. And if people want it, we should be able to have some additional inventory so people can order. And then, if the demand keeps on growing, we might be able to bring in some more, or we'll see how it works out.
And is it going to be exclusive to the people who attend TPE?
Well, no, we plan to open it up. I mean, I think it's very important. We have a lot of retailers that are part of our Aladino that support our brand, and we need to allow that to be opened up to the rest. Last year, we only did a test pilot with the farm stores, the stores, the retailers that had visited the farm. And now that we saw that success story, we want to repeat it and open it up to the rest of the stores.
Well, very excited to try that and check that out. Like I said, I like a good Candela. I don't think I had the last one, the Robusto. I remember it coming out. I don't think I had one. So I have to definitely make sure that I get my hands on the Toro, because I don't want to miss that out again. But then there's PCA. Do you have anything that's planned for PCA that's also kind of a new
we
release,
have something coming out. We remember doing on our whole line, we have probably our boldest cigar and probably our flagship is our Aladino Reserva.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be coming out with another cigar that is going to be maybe not as strong, but in that same realm. So that's the idea, to come out with another cigar that's going to be up there. It's going to be probably a darker wrapper, and so we want to come out with something there. I'm still basically polishing off all the details of the blend in the next 20 to 30 days. And we already have some prototypes. We're working on the bands and everything. So hopefully that's something that's going to be showed off at the trade show and opened up. Hopefully we'll be able to have some of the inventory already ready to ship during PCA, and the rest of the stuff, in the following months.
So it sounds like you have a busy couple of months up ahead of you. You got some new stuff coming out. You also had the Sumatra, which came out this year. Um, you guys don't skip a beat over there. It's just business as usual. You keep on rolling. Like to stay
Well,
busy. I like it.
yeah, well, it's good. Sometimes you got to worry because there's a lot of things that could come out to come out to the plate, and then the thing is too, the industry sometimes, and I think in a good way, always expects something new, but in a bad way, it also expects everybody to come out with something new. And sometimes there is limitations to do something right because it takes time and it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of aging, and the tobacco has to be right to be able to come out with something new. And that's why we took our time to come out with the Sumatra. We took our time to come out with the Cameroon. So we're slowly evolving on what we do. I think we'll be coming out also with a new ring gauge size Gordo and our San Andres Maduro, because we're lacking that gauge, and people are asking for Gordo and our San Andres wrapper. So that's going to be coming out also too in PCA.
Now, I could have. Did you say something? I'm sorry. Before the show, I know we talked about a couple of things. Did you say you were doing something with the vintage as well? Maybe I misheard that or something. I thought something.
No, 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 nothing with the vintage
Oh,
stuff.
okay, okay. I'm sorry. I thought maybe I couldn't remember. Um, well, let me hit the news segment really quickly, and then I'll circle back to you. I'm just gonna switch the screen here really quick. Our news is once again brought to you by Micallef Cigars. That's right. If you head over to micallefcigars.com today, you can sign up to become an official ambassador. While you're at it, check out the Micallef Black, rated 91 at smokintabacco.com. The Micallef Black, it's a blackout. This week, just a lot more notices on new products that are finally shipping, stuff we saw at the trade show, stuff that we've heard announced, earlier in the year, and it's the holiday season now. The last of the releases that we saw this year are starting to ship, and it's usually the bigger ones too, is just in time for the holidays. And Gurkha showed off a couple of things at the trade show this year, and we're finally seeing another one of them ship. The Gurkha 25th Anniversary Beauty has now begun shipping. The Gurkha Cigar Group International announces its 25th Anniversary Beauty cigar is now shipping to retailers. Gurkha's 25th Anniversary Beauty sports a special blend created exclusively for this cigar. Its Corojo wrapper is adorned with an ornate and holographic oversized band. It is also uniquely presented in the tubes, stand tall inside of its high gloss cherry box instead of laying flat. With this release, Gurkha is honoring the 25th anniversary of an old company favorite. It's been 25 years since Gurkha first introduced the beauty, and it's still a favorite cigar amongst connoisseurs, comments Jim Colucci of Gurkha Cigars. So we decided to do a special release on the beauty, honoring the 25-year anniversary with a Corojo wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Ecuadorian broadleaf fillers. The Gurkha 25th Anniversary Beauty retails at $30 per cigar and will be made in the Dominican Republic by Las Lavas Cigars. The cigar is now shipping to retailers worldwide. So, if this is something that you could be interested in, is something you want to try, which I highly recommend you do, as always try new cigars. That's my motto. Contact your local Gurkha retailer and let them know that you're interested and pick it up. Now, that'll do it for our news this week. Excuse me. Justo, welcome back to the show. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, now I noticed that you have a pretty good selection of sizes that you work with too, which I also really enjoy. And one of the things I noticed is I don't know if you make it in all of your lines, but I know I believe the original Aladino and I think the Corojo Reserva, you make a Lancero, although it's a little bit thicker than the average Lancero. I don't know the name or the actual dimensions of the cigar, so I'm hoping that you know which one I'm talking about. But there's also another.
So I think.
Which
Okay,
one?
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think you were talking about when I did the limited release of the Corona in the Reserva. So the Coronas are 44 by 5, which is a little bit thicker than the regular Lancero, which is 38. I do make Lanceros, and I make 5 Lanceros in 5 different blends. And I think today we're probably the company that sells the most Lanceros in the industry by the amount of Lanceros that I sell per SKU. So we're very proud about that.
Yeah, and I'm a Lancero smoker myself, and I know that this conversation with some people, you have the people who hate on the Lanceros, and you have people who love Lanceros. I love Lanceros, so any chance I have to, smoke one from anybody, and or at least try something new, I always jump on the opportunity because I think it's a great way to really taste, the wrapper, and it creates such a different dynamic than a lot of the other sizes, and I know I know others have talked about it's a tricky size to work with, and you mentioned that you guys, do a lot of Lanceros. Do you find that it is one of the trickier sizes that you do work with when you're working on new blends?
Absolutely. I think basically, I guess when you roll a lot of Lanceros, it's kind of the way you show off your manufacturing skills. And I think making Lanceros is a challenge. You have to have really really great teams to be able to do that, and they have to have a lot of patience. You're not going to have the production that you get in regular, like doing a Robusto or a Toro, and you have to sacrifice volume for quality, and you also have to have the right blend because the wrapper plays so much such an important role in making that cigar to be a successful blend that you have to be very careful what you blend the cigar with so it draws and also burns perfectly.
Yeah, and that's why I always recommend the Lanceros to people who, really want to taste, the wrapper of a certain blend. If there's a cigar that's, four other sizes than the Lancero, I always say, hey, if you really like that cigar, try the Lancero because you'll really get a sense of, what that wrapper tastes like because, the ratio of filler, to binder and wrapper, compared to the other sizes, you obviously you get a lot more of that wrapper in there. So I always found, I mean, granted, yes, there are some Lanceros that are better than others and blended better than others, but for the most part, I personally, I'm not as picky with Lanceros, and I think that the Lancero is, for the real connoisseur who, really likes to differentiate tobaccos, I've always found it to be an important size, and I think it's a size that a lot of cigar smokers should try their favorite cigars in if it's available, obviously. And there's another size that you make that I also really enjoy, and I don't know the dimensions, but I know it's called the Santi, if I'm saying it correctly.
Yes. Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that size. I'll tell you that size has got to be one of my favorites, and I'm notorious for being a larger cigar smoker on average. But I'll tell you that size, it's a smaller little size, but I could smoke those all day, and especially in the blends that you have. I mean, they're great, but that is a size that's what exactly is the dimensions on that?
That is actually a 32 by 5.5.
32. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
it's a skinny
Lancero is a
cigar.
38. So you're going way thinner.
Yeah,
And I got to tell you something. That size has been a true success in the European market. And I think I just had made packaging because normally I only sell it in a 50 box count and they do really, really well. But I want to start packaging in 10 count packs. And I'll probably come out with different blends so I can start, uh, selling it even more in the US market now, opening it up to different blends. So I'm just waiting for the packaging to be done. And as of probably next year, we'll come out with a little bit more variety for the local US market.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned being big in Europe. Europe is, from what I understand, more on the smaller Vitola size in terms of
Absolutely.
popularity
Yes.
over there.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a
Over here is
reason
a
for that?
well, I think uh, everything here that we do in the U.S. comes in big size. We got big trucks. We got the big gulp. We got the Big Mac. Everything that we do is big. The big
Fair.
steak over there. All the menus that you see now today in the U.S. when you come and see a tasting menu, they're trying to replicate all the European small plates, the small sizes. They look for smaller cigar gauges. It's just a different cultural aspect of the way we consume things.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't, I've never been to Europe, so I've never gone over there myself. I know a couple people who are from there, and smokers wise, and it's true. Yeah, they always go for the robustos and in the shorter cigars, and I always found it very interesting. Um, But then again, you're right. The culture is very different between the two.
It is
So
completely. I mean, look at the cars. Everything is smaller, and that there's nothing wrong. The streets are smaller. Everything's smaller there, so it's not. We're used to big, so it's and our people are bigger. Too. I
it's true.
mean, when you look at when I make shirts or swag for my guys, it's usually XL and above. Over there, you got to do medium and large for most of the people who are small. So it's a different. We're a more plentiful, big. We're accustomed to do bigger.
Now, when you just talked about the Lanceros, and we talked about those being tricky to work with, obviously being much thinner ring gauge. That size in a 32 ring gauge has to be, I want to say, even trickier to work with.
Even tougher. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what's the secret there? I mean, when you go down to, that's probably one of the thinner, I would say, industry-wide ring gauges that we've probably seen. Not that no one else does really thin ring gauges, but they're not as common, obviously. But I mean, what's the trick with a cigar that thin to really just get it right?
First of all, you can't overpack the cigar when you're doing the bunch, because if not, the problem that you have is that it becomes too tight and then it won't draw.
Right.
So it's very important to do that. With the way we do our bunches, we do it in an accordion instead of doing a roll-on. So it's a tube. So it's different. It's the techniques that you use to roll, but most important, and at the same time, every single cigar has got to get draw tested. So if it doesn't draw, they got to do it again. So it also takes special teams to specialize on that too.
And you mentioned that you were going to be offering that in 10-count packs.
Yes.
When did you happen to say when those would maybe make their way to the market?
Well, we were just talking about it, so I need to put that in the queue, because as we talk, I'm doing it for other markets, so I need to bring it on now. So this meeting with you is awesome, because I need to bring it up.
I'm glad I could be of service in some way.
Absolutely, that was perfect.
Now, one of the things I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I've noticed this myself, but I'll be honest, it was other people who kind of turned it on to me, is one of the things about your cigars that I've noticed a lot of, especially in the Corojo Reserva blend, is there's a strong taste of, not strong in a bad way, but it's enough of a background taste that you pick up on it, and especially when someone points it out to you. But there's this underlying flavor component, especially in the aroma of I can't get the word out of my mouth, eucalyptus. And I was told, is it true that you guys grow eucalyptus on the farm in Honduras?
Well, I don't know if I heard that from you now, but remember, palates are very, very, very subjective to the people that smoke it. We do grow a lot of eucalyptus because we use that as windbreakers and also as plague repellents, and it's part of the reusable wood that we use to in the farm for construction and rebuilding. But I had not heard eucalyptus before, but like I said, the palate is very subjective. So if somebody gets that eucalyptus taste, it might be there, but I don't think it has anything to do with the eucalyptus that we do. Maybe in the future, I got to put a little bit of eucalyptus oil, and it can help you for sore throats.
Oh, it's interesting because I've heard that from several different people of like, oh yeah, and then someone had also said, oh well, they grow eucalyptus down there, and I wonder if for any reason that has something to do with why people get that. And it's true. I mean, palates are subjective, so then it's like you hear someone say it, and then your mind is just like, oh, you're like looking for that.
Yeah, I can see somebody, because you get so much intensity of flavor, and you get that peppermint too, and you get that leathery, and you get that little bit of a nuttiness that you might be able to feel a little bit of eucalyptus there. Like I said, I'm not an expert, because I don't smoke the Reserva that much, because I'm a lightweight, and that cigar will put me away, and there's no problem with me admitting it.
Oh, well, at least you're honest about it. A lot of people might try to hide that.
I'm too old to learn how to lie. I got a bad memory.
So you basically answer a question that I don't even have to ask, and that's of the cigars you make, which ones do you probably smoke the least, or are your least favorites? So now I guess we would put the reserve in. I don't know if I'd say least favorite, but you definitely, it sounds like you don't smoke a lot of those. So,
I gotta tell you, I'm a pretty hyper person. So, for example, when I go down to the factory, the first thing that I'd go down there, I light up a Reserva in the morning. I drink a lot of coffee, and I'm all wired up. So I'll drink a Reserva, I'll smoke a Reserva, and basically that will tone me down. And all the guys in the factory, hey, smoke this one, smoke this one. They want me to smoke a couple of Reservas because they want to see me buzzed. But since I'm all coffeeed up, it doesn't hurt me that much. But I do smoke Reservas. Don't get me wrong, especially after a strong dinner or anything. I can smoke a Reserva, but my go-to is usually Cameroon Corojo Classic. I'm a medium to mild smoker. I like to smoke. I like to smoke pretty often and pretty many cigars. So I stick to that. To the to also I love the Connecticut early in the morning. But Corojo and Cameroon Classic, those are my four to go all the time.
yeah, you mentioned the Connecticut. And that's another great cigar that you guys make, and I feel like, and I'll be honest with you, and maybe you have a different outlook on it, but I feel like I don't. I feel like it's one of the least talked about Aladino cigars out there, and there's people I talk to, and I mentioned that one, and people don't even realize that you have a Connecticut cigar in the line. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's a great cigar, and you guys do a great job with it too. Um, and I don't
And
know
it's
if
one of the best-selling SKUs that we have in our portfolio. People that smoke Connecticut. Remember, a lot of the people that are smoking Connecticut are the guys that go play golf. They smoke 2 or 3 cigars a day.
right.
They do their thing. They're very quiet. They're not out there posting and making a lot of noise. Mostly the young pups and all the guys that are posting stuff like to talk about the stronger, bolder cigars. But still today, the most dominant wrapper in the whole country is Connecticut. It is what it is. People that smoke Connecticut smoke 4 or 5 cigars, and people that smoke strong cigars might smoke 2 or 3 or one a day. So the Connecticut guys are the ones that keep the lights on.
And it's funny that every manufacturer says that too, and I know it's true. And then you mentioned a good point, like the people who like to the cigar geek people. I'll just say it like that. The people like me and like Coop and like all of people like us. We always talk about all the stronger cigars. Why do you think it is that the stronger cigars seem to get all the chatter, yet they're obviously not the highest selling cigars? Um, it's I guess that's interesting to me. You would think that everyone would be talking about the cigars that sell the most, but in fact, it's always kind of the opposite, which is something I never really thought about myself either. It's kind of
No, that
interesting.
always happens. Everybody, if you go to a friend's house, usually the loudest guy is the one that you listen to the most, probably the most annoying, probably the one that's got the least friends.
Yeah, that's sometimes that's true. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
not sometimes it's true. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying it's usually we always brag about I'm smoking. I'm drinking this bourbon, which is 50% proof or 60% proof, and I drink this and I drink that. But at the end of the day, you probably drink way more beer than anything else. So it's just it is it's part of the human nature, I guess, the way we express ourselves and the way we brag about things that things people always brag about sometimes things that are harder to get or things that are are more tasteful or what's more of a fad that you like to brag about.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point too. Now, one of the other questions I want to ask you is in terms of, I mean, you work with a lot of tobacco. You do a lot of blending. You get your hands full with that. But is there any tobaccos that you've always wanted to work with and either you couldn't or you just couldn't, you couldn't get them to grow right on your farm or whatever the reason is, but that you've always like had a vision for doing something great with, and it's just kind of never come to fruition.
I would say Connecticut broadleaf is something that we have on our back of our minds. We're still working and plugging along, and maybe you'll be surprised. We're going to be coming out with something that it will be surprising in the next couple of years. We'll see. We're still on it.
No,
We don't
obviously.
give up. We don't give up.
Now, I assume that's something you've obviously been trying to grow down in Honduras on your farm.
And we grown. We had some successful crops, but like I said, everything takes time. You have so much ammunition. You first have to come out and establish something that you created enough inventory and you created the right blend to get something done. And then once you have that going and rolling on its own, then you start moving to something else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you guys definitely have like I said, an arsenal down there of things you can do. It's exciting. It's exciting to always see what the next one is. Like the Sumatra. I mean, kind of going back to the Sumatra. I know that's something that you mentioned you guys were kind of working with, and you're finally able to kind of get it, out there and get it where you want to be. Um, and when did that cigar release? Was that a fall release? The Sumatra?
We shipped it out in October.
October. Yeah, yeah. I knew it was kind of recent. I can I keep thinking it's November too for some reason. So I'm thinking like, oh yeah, that was like last month, but
Really,
it's already
two more
December.
weeks and we're in Christmas.
I know. It's great. I'll be
Even
30 on
though this year
Monday.
has gone really slow for me.
It's funny. My year's gone fast. I had a baby, which I don't have to tell you. I mean, life gets a lot faster when that happens too. And I'm gonna be 30 on Monday, which I can't believe. I'm crossing into the
Wow,
next
you're
decade.
becoming an old man. I wish I was turning 30. I wish I could trade places.
I'm sure you could. And I don't blame you. And I don't feel too old yet, but I know that after 30, it's then now you're looking at 40, and then from there it's they always
It's
tell
nice.
me, and I'm not saying that anyone's old here, but everyone who's hit 40 has always said to me, it's all downhill from here. So I don't know. I have that to look forward to find out if it's true or not for myself. I got 10 years left. Oh man. Now, you mentioned bourbon a few minutes ago. Are you a bourbon guy? What do you
I've been
mostly
learning
drink?
a little bit more since I traveled to Kentucky, Tennessee, and all these places. And I sit a lot around the table with a lot of the cigar smokers, and they're offering me bourbons, and they always say, hey, a bourbon can be a whiskey, but a whiskey can be a bourbon, and it's got some really good stuff out there.
Yeah, very delicious. I mean, I feel like it is not just the whiskey that everyone's drinking now. I mean, I think it's like one of the most popular spirits people are drinking right now. There's a bourbon boom right now. There's been a bourbon boom for the last several years. I've seen a lot more distilleries putting out, so many more things. It's almost like the cigar industry now. I mean, there's just you're just seeing more and more stuff pop up. Things being harder to get. People talking about it. It's crazy. I feel like there was a period where it was like Scotch, 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 and like now it's just all bourbon. I see everyone just drinking bourbon now. Everyone's kind of moved on from Scotch. I don't know. Maybe Scotch has become, your grandfather's whiskey. I don't know.
Well, I think COVID was a lot of good for the bourbon industry and for the cigar industry. And let's hope we're able to capture more or get more people into the cigar smoking. And I think like the bourbon industry got more people to try bourbons, and hopefully with that will follow up in the next years as more people start getting into cigars.
Yeah, absolutely. And they definitely go hand in hand. And I think I've definitely noticed more people who are, whiskey people, bourbon people, getting more of those people are getting into cigars, which is great for the industry, always growing. And I think it's also helped the younger demographic. We've talked about this, the last couple of years, and I'm sure as a manufacturer, you notice trends and whatnot. But there's definitely more younger smokers now than there were 20 years ago, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one, the digital age, social media, just people seeing stuff and being aware of stuff that's out there, and people being more open to trying stuff. But like even with the craft beers and the bourbon markets, and now I mean you're even seeing like tequilas and rums that are getting kind of exciting to people too. You're seeing a lot more stuff happen with those spirits too, and one most people I know when they like to drink, they like to smoke something with it too. I mean whether it's a cigar or it's something else. But I think that you're right. I think that also helps that too, and which is great for the industry. Um, Always take more of that. Justo, I'm looking at the time, and we're getting close to the end of the show. We're getting towards our hour mark. So first of all, before I forget, I want to say thank you for being here tonight because I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, and you take the time to come on the show. I thank you. I appreciate you. You've been great tonight and answered all of our questions. So thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on. I know it's our first time. You and I have been good friends. You've always been a true gentleman. I appreciate your time and many blessings to your new family. Happy birthday as of Monday ahead of time. And next time I
Thank you.
see you, you're not going to be lacking any Lanceros, maybe a Santi and Reservas.
Yeah, those are my favorites. I love those, and thank you for the kind words. It's funny. I remember you were one of the first people I saw after I got married last year, because Nicole and myself got married in Vegas for the trade show, and I'll never forget. You said to me, and it's true, it's true. I saw you. We were passing through. I think you were going in to have dinner somewhere, and I told you like, hey, we got married and whatever, because no one knew. We didn't tell anyone. And I just remember you gave me a pat on the belly, and you're like, see, like now you get married, and then they fatten you up so that you can't go anywhere. It's so true.
That's what happens. That's what happens. Yeah. They
It's
make
so
you less
true.
attractive for just only for them.
Yeah, they get you, and then they change you, and they're like, you ain't going anywhere.
Exactly. Exactly. But you know what? I've been married for over 30 years, and I got to tell you, it's been a blessing. It's been great.
Yeah, yeah. It's an exciting time. For me and Nicole, we've done a lot. We got engaged, we got married, we had a baby, all a year apart. It's definitely been a busy couple of years. But we've already done all those things. So now I'm like, what's the next 10 years going to be like? We've already done all the biggest things we can do. So now it's just it's just a new chapter, I guess. It's just taking it all and seeing where it goes. But um, it's a blessing of a time, and I can't wait to get to that point too, when I can look back and remember all these times. But Justo, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Have a great night. Thank you so much, and wish you all the luck, and hope to see you very soon. And many blessings. All right, my friend.
Oh, likewise, likewise. I couldn't have said it any better. Guys, thank you for watching our show tonight. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all of our podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. And as always, you can head over to smokingtobacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.